All right, 8.4 is about one of three ways that you can find rate of change or slope. In general, the rate of change or slope is about measuring how 2 points relate to each other. It can be a positive rate of change or a negative rate of change. Pretty much what you're looking at is if there were 2 points here, you're looking at how they relate. If there were 2 points here, you're looking at how they relate. If there were 2 points here, you're looking at how they relate. So typically rate of change has to do with 2 points. And what you're looking at is what's going on. If you have points like this is a positive slope because as you look at it, if you wrote your name on it, it would be going in an upward direction. This would be a negative slope because if you wrote your name on it, it'd be going in a negative direction. And this would be zero slope, assuming that was flat, because if you wrote your name on it, it would be going straight across. But outside of that, the overall method that we're going to see should be memorized and made instinctual. I just believe the best way to learn it is to make sure you work through the questions that you see. The problems will tell you what to do, but you just need to make sure you execute the steps on your own outside of Math XL. So before we get to the work, let's look at the formula and talk about some things. So first off, the formula for slope or rate of change is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now you see these numbers and they're called subscripts. Subscripts and superscripts are different. Y squared is different than y sub 2. Superscript means it's flying in the air like Superman. Subscript means it's floating below like a submarine. You of course know that exponents mean that you're taking y times y, but the 2 here means something completely different. And it's very important for you to make sure you understand what that is, otherwise it's going to be tough for you to do this. So if you saw t sub 6, it would translate to be the 6th t in a list. So typically there'd be a list of t's, and so you'd be looking for the 6th t in that list. If you saw m sub 3, you're looking for the 3rd value of m in that list. So if there was a list of m's, you want the 3rd one here. If there was a list of t's, you would want the 6th one there. So when you're looking at the formula here, it's asking you to do the, and as you read, the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. And so when you get to understand how that works, it's going to be easier to work with because you at least know what you're looking for. And so again, that is part of the part of the work you need to do. Now this is what your Math XL questions will look like. Exactly, of course it'll be boxes for you to put your answers in, but it's going to say what is the value of y2. So before we get to that, we've got to understand that this is the first ordered pair of x and y. This is the second ordered pair of x and y. So when it says what's the value of y2, it's saying go to the second ordered pair and what is the value of y, which is 33. y1 means go to the first ordered pair and find the value of y, which is 8. x2 means go to the second ordered pair, that's what the 2 stands for, and pick your x, which is 11. x1 means go to your first ordered pair and pick your x, which is 6. In the end, you take those things and you're going to substitute directly. So y2 minus y1 is going to be 33, that's your y2, minus y1, which is 8, over x2, which is 11, minus x1, which is 6. You got to make sure you don't get mixed up on that, otherwise it'll get really interesting. Then you're going to take your calculator, and I'm not going to use a calculator, but not yet, but 33 minus 8 is 25, 11 minus 6 is 5, and in the end 25 divided by 5 is just a regular 5. So literally all we're doing is identify y2, y1, x2, x1. That's first step. Second step is substitute them into the formula that you eventually need to memorize. Third step is subtract the top and the bottom to simplify. And the fourth step is just divide the fraction. So it's a very direct and linear process. You just have to make sure that you work to understand it. Once again, y2 means what's the second y, which again, if this is the second point, that is your second y, which is 20. y1 would be your first y, which is 2. x2 is your second x, which is 10. x1 is your first x, which is 7. After that, you substitute. Again, y2 is 20, minus y1 is 2, over x2 is 10, minus x1, which is 7. From there, you simplify. 20 minus 2 is 18, 10 minus 7 is 3, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. And that's that. One more before we look at some more realistic types. y2 again is your second y, which is 19. y1 is your first y, which is 7. x2 is your first x, which is 3. x1 is your first x, which is 1. Again, you got to make sure you know that. Second x, second y. So if it's xy, xy, you need to make sure that's your second y, that's your first y. Second x, first x is how you get that. And then we plug that in. So y2 is 19 minus y1, which is 7, over x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is 1. 19 minus 7 turns into 12. 3 minus 1 turns into 2. And then when you divide that, 12 divided by 2 is 6. And that would be it. So again, that's all you need to worry about doing. That's all you need to try to make sure you can do. But looking at this, you've got to make sure you can get to it without the instructions, but it's also, again, the fact that you're going to see negative numbers, so you need to be ready for all of that. Otherwise, you'll get thrown off. And when you take that big test next week, you will see negatives and you won't see any directions. So the directions will be on your test for Chapter 8. They will not be on your 150-point test next week. So -2, 7, 5, -14. When you're doing that, the best way to do this is to write the formula first, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then make sure you use your training. y2 is the second y, which would be -14, minus y1 is the first y, which is 7, over x2 is the second x, which is 5, minus x1, which is your first x, which is -2. Now pay attention to the fact that -2 made you put it in parentheses because it's negative. It's x1 minus x2. Even if that's the case, if that's negative, you have to respect it. If you don't know what that is, now you use the calculator the way that we've learned, or the way that you've been shown, which is -14 minus 7, or -21, over 5 minus parentheses -2, which is 7. And if you don't know what -21 divided by 7 is, type that in as well, and you end up with -3 as your slope. So just remember to keep all that in mind. Take your time, and again, make sure you understand what you're doing with that information so that you can fight your way to it. In general, the main thing is just these two steps. The first step, making sure you know how to write the formula, because you eventually need to memorize it. And the second step is making sure you substitute right. So in this case, again, y2 is -27, minus y1 is -9, and because it's negative, we put that in parentheses. x2 is -9, minus x1 is 3. And again, if you don't know what those numbers are, you just type it in, so you get -18 here, over -9 minus 3, which is -12. And if you don't know what -18 over -12 is, I've even taught you how to do that on this calculator. And so you can do that as well, getting the answer of 3/2. So again, looking at all this, this is what's going on. In the end, just remember that slope has to be memorized. You're not expected to perfect it right now, but again, this is why your homework is going to walk you through the process. But just do your best to make the steps natural for yourself, so you don't need the extra explanations. You want to try to get to a point where you can look at a question like this and go straight through the process on your own. And honesty is honestly very basic. Just remember, again, the Y's always go on top, and it's always the second point first. So after that, practice just takes care of the rest. But again, just be sure to ask for help if you need it. We are wrapping up the year pretty soon, so make sure you're preparing for that. Outside of that, I'll talk to you later. Good luck.